Have a question here from Joe Blog 8765. Hey Chet, what games made you cry? And the answer is none. None. But now that sounds like, oh my God, so you're saying games aren't an art form or something. And I've never had a painting make me cry. I read a ton of books. I just was reading Stella Maris, and it is a book that made me think a lot. I had to put down. I don't want to read another book right now until I digest it more. But it didn't make me cry. Books don't make me cry. I've read tons and tons of books. I've seen not tons, but I've seen operas, light operas, ballet, theater once, I think, maybe a little. Yeah. Kind of when the realization of what was happening hit in. Songs, yes. Songs, sure. Songs definitely, even lousy, crappy songs. Movies, hell yeah. I think the last time I really non-connected to something else, but just as reacting to art, I cried like crazy. Actually, it was from Arrival, the movie. When I used to fly a lot on a plane, we had just lost our kitten, who had died early. And my wife and I, Lugosi, Bella had a brother named Lugosi, so together they were Bella Lugosi, named together. And Lugosi was just this craziest cat we ever had, and super fun. And he passed away early at FIP, and actually was part of a study that cured FIP. So, but it was really horrific death, and it was really horrific with how Bella reacted to it, and it was hard. And with that, we were talking about would we have done it again? And yeah, we would have, because in the movie, which spoiler, if you haven't seen Arrival, is about that question. And there's a point in that movie where I'm on the plane, I've had a drink, and it hits me what it's about, and I lose it. I am a sobbing mess. And I probably thought I had something wrong with me at that point. I don't know. I think stewards must be so used to just seeing people crying on a plane, because it happens a lot. But yeah, so that kind of stuff. But not all art makes that same kind of connection and same kind of emotional response, right? So, again, like books and art. I mean, again, film, like watching suffering's hard, or that connection. But like games for me are about that feeling of sometimes mastery. That I like a good sports play. Like if I'm golfing and I hit a hole in one, I'm not going to cry. And same with kind of games of that side. And then also for the story side and the connection side, often I have the feeling of like all the connections coming together and being like, oh. Or I have the sit and think about it, or I have the experience of it. I want to know what's next. I think of things like Gone Home and stuff, where you have this moment where it's dawning on you what the story is really about, and it's connecting, and I just want to like figure out how to go through it. But yet we still have the mechanics of games, right? And I think about this a lot right now, because I think about there are games that are just time wasters, right? They're just you're doing something while you're in line at the bank. I don't know who goes in line at the bank, but you know what I'm saying. And then there's games that are experience and connection. Now, a lot of the games I make are about connecting people to each other, and the rest of it's in the background. I mean, Portal single player was Eric and Jay Moore. The co-op was something different, and that was me. And that was, again, trying to get two people to talk a little bit. And then Left 4 Dead kind of being in the background while Left 4 Dead and Santa Cruz being kind of background in a way for like you having those connections of the player to player. And because I think about that now of like, do I want to do something single player where we do kind of have that and do have those connections? And I'll tell you what, as a writer, man, your first thing is like, I want to make people cry and sad, because there's some like, that's high art. That is the greatest thing you can do. And then I just make people laugh, and I think that's pretty good. But it's in the back of my head about the crying thing. And it may also just be generational, that my introduction to games, I mean, you definitely weren't crying over any games when, I mean, man, you're not crying over Zork, but like, a lot of the early stuff is just not kind of have that kind of emotional connection. I mean, now, for as much as they say I skip story and all of that, there are games that kind of catch me in their claws a little bit, and I kind of want to know, or I just kind of want to have that experience. Like when I played Oh, come on. What's a kite flying game? Oh my God. A short hike. Uh, Kite flying game. A short hike. Like there's a moment there when you realize what it's about and the ending and everything. And it was close enough to stuff happening in my life. That made me sad. That made me bummed and happy, like sad, happy. Right. But it wasn't like sobbing. It was just nice. Right. I think a lot of stories can do that. And have that connection. But again, other people may have different connections to games in a way that they do, and that's fine. And that's fine. Like, right, there's nothing like I brought the example of the good sob because there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, get a couple whiskeys in me and start playing some old music. Yeah, I'm gonna be a mess. Maybe not. Maybe I'll just be happy, right? But so like, there's a whole range of things different art forms are really good at delivering. I'd say music probably the biggest kind of moody one on that for me. I don't know, but even that, it's different kind of music. I listened to a bunch of Philip Glass last night, and I'm not crying to that. Oh, all right. Though, if you played Barbers, yeah, that'd make me cry. All right, but so right, but it's different. It's different, right? And it's different often to your relationship to it, and for music, I think it's your relationship to the past of it. Like, I don't think the first time you hear a song, you ever cry to a song. You hear a song and you have a relationship to it and you cry to that. And I think games are often novel, right? You're going through them and everything's new to you and you're experiencing it and you're trying to use the brain to figure out what's going on. And I mean, that's why kind of like people will be dismissive of walking sim, but I get why you remove mechanics. But equally, mechanics work for you. I'm going to use Gone Home as the example again of that. I thought it was a horror game at first, and that work then to open up the receptors to kind of have the emotional response to the story that happens there. So I'm not saying that it's not possible. I am also not saying that that's the high end of making games, right? I mean, kind of the thoughtfulness or the feeling that I come away from different books, in particular, I think books, probably is what I think is high watermark for that kind of thing. I mean, there's some art that equally, like the first time I've seen it and realized how big it was and kind of had the reaction to that was interesting. I don't know. I'm kind of curious. Is there a game that you've cried to? And then is there a game that you think everyone would cry to, right? Because there's like the old, The Champ, the movie The Champ, young Roy Schneider crying. Wasn't it The Champ? Something like that. I don't know. My sister brought me to it, and everyone's just crying. Then everyone's just laughing that they're crying. Hell, at the end of Armageddon, when we saw it opening weekend, Eric was so good on this one. Everyone was just crying at the end of it when the guy goes up to Liv Tyler and he's like, I want to shake the hand of the woman of the bravest man I've ever met. And Eric blurted out Steve Tyler, which was the perfect relief because the entire theater was crying, and he said that, and everyone just started laughing, right? And so those two, comedy and that emotional release of tears, are often tied together because you can use one to leverage the other. But yeah, so I got sidetracked again. But I'm just kind of curious of what you guys think on this one. And again, it's not the high watermark, and it doesn't say that games aren't art or anything like that because it hasn't happened for me that way. Because then books aren't art for me. And man, you want to make that argument with me, we're going to be in a long fight. Yeah, sometimes I also just feel like fighting, and games are a good release for that, huh?